Hi everyone, today we are going to be learning about finding fractions of fractions. So our learning target today is I can figure out a fraction of another fraction and draw it as a model. This actually is leading into something that we'll be learning about more in depth later, but I don't really want to tell you what it is because I want you to try to figure out what we're doing. Okay, let's think about a somewhat real life example. Let's remember our old friend Mr. Big Beefy Guy, and let's say that he's got a Hershey bar. And let's say that I come along and I say, I'm hungry. Mr. Big Beefy Guy, can I have half of your Hershey bar? He says, of course, Mrs. Piper. Here's half of my Hershey bar. And then, like all kids, my kids come along and say, Mom, I want half of your half. And who could say no to this little cutie pie here? So even though he's really too little to be eating Hershey's bars, I give him half of my half. Now, when I look at this, I look at what half of my half was compared to what it was with the whole bar. Just going to rearrange things here just a little bit. And what I see really is that my bar is divided up into really fourths. So when I broke my half apart to give half of it to this little cutie pie, half of a half ended up being 1/4. Okay, now I want to think about this and draw a model for you. So we had our nice little visual of splitting up that candy bar, but now I want to draw a model. So I want to start off with thinking about having half. So this rectangle here, this is a whole, okay? So I've already divided it in half, and I'm going to shade in half to show that that's what I have. Okay, so this is how our Mr. Big Beefy Guy started. He had half. You split half with me, right? Half of a candy bar. Okay, now I'm going to split it the other way because I want to show you what half of that would look like. So I'm going to go, so again, I want to take the whole that I have, the whole being the whole rectangle, and I want to split it in half. So to keep it all straight, I think I'm going to go vertically here and split it in half. Then I'm going to shade in another half. So I'm going to shade the whole half here. Notice I'm using a different color and I'm going in a different direction. So when I look at my original half and I think about splitting that in half, what's half of that? Well, that is 1/4 of the whole. Okay, what I have shaded in here going both directions, both red and blue, and going in both opposite directions, that's 1/4 of the whole. Okay, this time we're going to think about another one. I like starting off thinking about halves. So I'm going to think about what is half of 2/3. So this might seem a little bit goofy, but because I'm thinking about half of 2/3, what I really need to start with is 2/3. So I think that I'm going to start horizontally with the 2/3 because I always like to go horizontal than vertical. It just sort of makes more sense to me. So I'm going to shade in 2/3. So 1/3. See how I'm drawing nice straight lines here? This will help and make it not get so cluttered when we shade in our second side. So now I have shaded in that 2/3. Okay, now I'm taking half of that. So I just want to look at half of that 2/3. So I'm going to draw a line, and again I'm going to take this whole thing and split it in half. And I do that because I want to make sure that I keep my model of the number of pieces straight. Because if I just split it in half like this, that would be accurate, but then I have to figure out what size piece I have here. Okay, so I'm going to draw that line all the way up. Now I'm going to shade in half. All the way, the whole half. Okay, then I'm going to look here for what parts overlap. So I can see that the two parts that overlap are right here. So I'm going to draw a big fat X right here and right here. So then half of 2/3 is actually, I've got two parts shaded, and then the whole is now split into 6 parts. Okay, girls and boys, it's time to do one where you follow along with me. This time we're going to model 2/3 of 1/4. Remember that we want to really start with the second fraction first so that we know what 1/4 is, and then we can actually take 2/3 of that. So do the second fraction first and make that one go horizontally, and then you can do the 2/3 going vertically or up and down. So draw your rectangle on a piece of paper and see if you can shade it in, and then unpause the video so that you can see what my model looks like. Okay, I started by shading in 1/4, and then I shaded in 2/3 on top of that. Now I look for the places where they overlap, and I see that there are 2 boxes where they overlap. So that means that the number of parts that I have is 2. And then the number of parts I count all together, and we have 12. So 2 out of 12. Okay, here's your quiz for today. And I'm going to actually ask you to answer the questions on Edmodo, and then I'm going to ask that you bring in your visual models of each of the problems that you did. Okay? So question number 1 is, what is 1/4 of 1/3? Question number 2 is, what is half of 1/5? And question number 3 is, what is 2/3 of 3/4? So make sure that you bring those models in on a piece of paper, and you can go ahead and answer the questions on Edmodo. Have a great night.